Learn the most empowering hiring techniques. Land the most desirable talent. Launch your company towards massive success. This is the Higher Power Radio Show with your host, Rick Girard.
All right. Did you know that money is not the most effective currency in hiring today? In fact, monetary compensation has tumbled down the list of reasons why people accept opportunities today. Things like career growth, learning, company culture, and meaningful work have leaped ahead of money. And yes, these are all forms of compensation. Now, we all know that money is important. However, personal satisfaction and purpose are what drive people today. And in order to hire the strongest people, we must understand the desires that drive each individual and connect them to your company's unique culture. I'm Rick Girard, and welcome to the Higher Power Radio Show. We help entrepreneurs and executives win the strongest people. We do so by sharing insights from top-performing rebel entrepreneurs, game changers, and industry leaders. Like our guest today, Bonni Pomush. Bonni is the CEO of Working Wardrobe. Now, following founder and 31-year CEO Jerry Rosen's retirement, Bonni became the second ever CEO in Working Wardrobe's history and has focused her leadership on modernizing and preparing Working Wardrobes to scale. Bonni has been nominated for numerous awards, the LA Times and Orange County's Inspirational Women, and was touted by the OC Register as one of Orange County's most influential people in 2023, which is what makes Bonni the perfect expert for today's topic. Bonni, welcome to the Higher Power Radio Show today.
Thanks so much, Rick. It's great to be here with you.
And it's great to have you. You know what? Look at Working Wardrobes. I mean, we're touting, like I've always been all in with Working Wardrobes. So it's a pleasure to kind of like be able to bring you on. I know way back when I had Jerry on, and we've just all been busy. So I'm glad to reconnect with you. So we're going to talk a little bit about your experience in kind of joining Working Wardrobes, and I think in particular, like how you've been able to kind of attract and retain people, and where has that started for you as you joined the organization?
Thanks for asking, Rick. It's always such a pleasure to reflect back on where you've been and really why you headed down that road in the first place. And then really on this side of it, to know and see the results that have been yielded so far down this road. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to dissect it with you a bit. When I came on the scene at Working Wardrobes at the end of 2021, I was really blessed to be able to observe Jerry leading the organization. And I got to really have about 2 months where she ran the organization and I got to learn and see how everything was operating. Starting in January then of 2022, when I really took the reins, the first thing we needed was to understand what was the landscape that was creating the results we were experiencing then. And at that time, we had a really high turnover rate that we wanted to address. And we also had some low scores on important metrics, on Glassdoor, Indeed, these, places where we all sort of see how the competition lines up. And when I did that deep dive, I did individual conversations and of course survey data with our entire staff. I learned what was important to the team. I also am an avid reader and lover of all things that are data-backed and research-oriented, and really brought my love for Gallup and the strengths approach to leadership and understanding people. So dove also into this idea of, most importantly, our managers need to be coaches. And how is it that we discover what our employees want? We have to ask them and then use our leaders to help bring that to them. So what we discovered from that data and those conversations was, to your point, what was most important to our employees? Compensation was not at the top of the list. At the top of the list,
never is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a bit of a relief, if you will, to a nonprofit leader who does not have all of the resources I wish I had to be able to, put on everyone. So how do you do that? Meet their needs. Got to first find out what they are, and then second, figure out how can you address them in the most low cost way possible. So what we learned from that data and those interactions was that our employees wanted opportunities to contribute to something that was a larger purpose than themselves. And our purpose is a pretty draw you in one, right? We're all about empowering our fellow humans to literally empower people with the information, the knowledge, the practice to not just get an interview, but nail an interview, how to make sure that resume gets past AI and into the humans' hands that need to see and meet them, how to prepare for those interviews with mock interview questions, all of that. Of course, our signature touch, which is in our name, is the styling that we do to make sure that the outside matches the inside. People knowing that they are contributing to this larger purpose of empowering other people is one part of the pie. The next part of the pie was understanding how they were individually going to also be invested in, right? That bigger purpose for other people also mattered to our employees, that they want to learn, grow, develop, harness the power that they contribute to the workforce in their career at Working Wardrobes. And we also learned that they really valued time off, that our staff really wanted more flexible time off, not necessarily more compensation, but more time to be paid and play. So those were some of the nuggets. I'm sure we'll dive into more of them, but those were some of the
Yeah.
that stood out to me from the top.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the root issue was really the fact that you guys just didn't really have a solid grasp on what your people wanted. Like, you you probably had an idea, like there was purpose, and I worked with you guys for a long time, so I know that core values were there, but like what the individuals really wanted from the organization above and beyond the paycheck. You had to kind of learn that in order to get to a point where you could tackle the retention and the glass door issue.
That's right, Rick. And we used like several different methodologies, if you will, to capture what those wants were and to identify what the priorities were. I mentioned we did, one-on-one conversations. We've now operationalized those into a quarterly feedback session. So every quarter has a different focus. Quarter one is what we call a skip level interview. And that's where you have an interview with a person that you don't directly report to, but your boss's
Right,
boss.
I'm gonna stop you really
Yeah.
quickly because I don't want to get there just yet.
Okay.
Because I always like to kind of really understand the problem and then kind of talk to, because I know you guys have done some really cool stuff and I want to spend more time doing that. So how does this correlate though? Like what you've learned during this piece, like how did that correlate to getting to a point where, not how you did it, but like how have you been able to raise that
Mhm,
the retention rate? What,
mhm.
like
Yeah.
what was that kind of differentiating factor? It wasn't compensation, obviously, right?
Right. Right. Well, where we were and where we are, I think is what you're wanting to know. Like, what's the before and after picture, right? So the
Yeah.
before picture, we had our score on Glassdoor and Indeed was in the mid twos, like 2.4, 2.5. We are now at 4.4. So that's
And
a
by the way, I
huge.
don't believe any of those because I hate Glassdoor. I think it's a
Well,
modern day mafia, but that's okay. That's just my perspective.
so we increased our mafia rating. Apparently, we we also, our turnover rate was another indicator for us of we set the goal that we wanted to hit an 80% or higher retention rate, that we wanted to retain 80% or more of our employees. That was our goal. Where we currently were was at about 47%. So we were looking to make a big, big difference. And I'm excited to share with you, we exceeded our own goal and we reached 88% retention last
See,
year.
that's awesome. That is so cool. And you know what? I want to correlate this to like really what we're really drilling down on is core value alignment, because
Mm,
at its root,
yeah.
and I kind of hinted at this in the top of the show, at its root, like the reason why people leave companies is because they don't align with core values. Like, if you run a search on Google, they always say growth and advancement, management, the work environment, lack of recognition or appreciation, and then, of course, work-life balance, right? Like those are the main things. Those also are the reasons why people join companies too. Compensation is usually way down the list, especially with the data we pulled via Intertrues. Like, when we talk about to people about why they're looking to leave, it's never because it's rarely about the money unless somebody's just grossly underpaid, right?
Sure.
But it's almost always about, well, you know what? I mean, there's nowhere else for me to go. I had somebody say to me, in order for me to get ahead in this company, somebody's got to die above me. Like, which is a
Ouch.
bummer place to be, right?
Yeah, that's really sad
Yeah,
for sure.
right. So very true.
Mhm.
All
We
right,
did
so
some of that key work too, and that core values made it, it's a different criteria to look at everyone and to know if you have the right people in the right seats is exactly what you said, Rick. If there's not an alignment with the core values, you're not going to get there. It just needs to be a mutual parting and find a place where your values do match.
yeah, I had a mentor that would call it graduating people, right?
Yeah,
So let's
yeah,
graduate them to a better place.
totally.
Are you listening to the Higher Power Radio Show? For our podcast listeners, we're for our podcast listeners, we're going to take a quick educational moment from our sponsors. Hey, I'm digging in deeper with our guest, Bonni Pomush. Bonni is the CEO of Working Wardrobes, and we're talking about kind of what's really valuable in an organization, in building values and getting people who not only join because of your mission, but also like how to retain people, especially when you don't have a big fat checkbook like Google or somebody else, right? So let's talk about how you guys approach this now. Now I want to get into how you did it, right? So let's talk about how you've been able to kind of change those scores and get better engagement and been able to elevate, the overall happiness and performance of the organization.
Well, let's pick up where we left off, which was this core values exercise, right? And
Yeah.
really getting a real clear sense of what is it that is different and unique about the culture at Working Wardrobes and the people that we attract and want to retain. So we had to start by first studying our peak performers. And when we studied our peak performers, that really led us to understand what are the core values that set these peak performers apart. And then that became really the thread, the through line of what it is that is just non-negotiable about being a part of the Working Wardrobes team. We also then agreed that it was non-negotiable that we develop, right? We develop our team just like we develop the clients we serve. And so we went into a few things. Firstly, we offer access to all of our employees to Toastmasters. We want everyone to be able to feel confident and comfortable speaking about, obviously, Working Wardrobes, but anything that they're doing. Secondly, we incorporated a quarterly system of conversation and feedback loops because we know that to learn and develop requires coaching, mentoring, and ongoing conversation. But part of that conversation that's most important is about how are you growing, learning, developing? What is it that you're looking to achieve in your career here? So we introduced this quarterly feedback model. Two of the quarterly opportunities to converse with an employee are about performance, goal setting, and this sort of feedback loop of where were you aiming, where did you get, how did that work, and how do we need to adjust course. But the other two are skip level and stay interviews. The skip level interview is really a conversation with your boss's boss, and it's an opportunity for a couple of checks to be happening, right?
Sure.
That culture feedback loop, but also about your middle level managers. The stay level interview is really that we're asking the question, why are you staying? What's keeping you working here? And we're studying that data to understand what it is we need to continue to invest in, or sometimes we're learning what's not landing, what's not hitting the mark. We've also really, whatever the right word is, prioritized internal promotions and making sure that our team is all aware of positions as they're becoming available before we're posting them, or we're prioritizing our internal candidates over external candidates.
So you're promoting internal growth as you develop people. All right,
For
let's
sure.
go back to like when you talked about studying your peak performers,
Mhm.
right? So I'm a big believer that core values kind of stem from the top down, you, right? And then they expand out, right? And so there's a direct correlation I've noticed be, between like the performance level of the CEO and the top performers. Was there anything you guys learned about that kind of surprised you?
I think the biggest thing that surprised me was this value of time off. I didn't
Okay.
realize that that was going to be the big thing. And when I learned that, it was so easy. In contrast, it was an easy thing to address. We looked at all different kinds of work structures, like different hours and days of week, and what would work best for our particular business. And we discovered the 980 work schedule would allow everyone 26 more days off paid. Holy cow. I just said that, right? Like we're adding to a holiday schedule 26 days. Wow. And it didn't cost us anything on the liability side, only on the productivity side. And it didn't really cost us, it added. So what is a 980 schedule? A 980
I'm gonna say,
schedule,
what's 980?
yeah. Unless you've been in sort of shift work mentality, you may not have ever heard of it. A 980 schedule is literally out of a 2-week period, you're working 80 hours. So that's where the 80 comes in, but you do it in 9 days, not 10. So that's a 9 days. In 9 days, you work 80 hours.
Okay.
So for our team, we have one team that is not able to be on this schedule. And what we did with that team was created a bonus structure. But for all the teams that were able to work this modified schedule, we work either, most people use it and maximize their weekend. So they're either off on Monday or Friday, and then the core team is, in person together, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. But that's really given exempt and hourly employees a little bit more of a matching schedule.
Sure.
And it's right. And it's given the days are longer. There's certainly an adjustment period, but everybody values so highly the compression so that they can have the time off, that I want to take that back to what you said, Rick, which is, yeah, I think that it's matching probably me more too, which is high intensity days, work hard, and then go play hard on the weekend.
There you go. So you're doing essentially one 10-hour, 4-day work week followed up by a 5-day work week with 8 hours. Is that kind of the way?
No, the way that ours works is all days are 9 hours, except
Okay.
for there's one 8 hour day. And like if you were off on the Friday schedule, let's say you would be 9 hours Monday through Thursday of week one, and off on that Friday. Then week two, you'd be 9 hours Monday through Thursday, but Friday would be an 8 hour day.
Okay. Oh, that's pretty cool. So, that is something that you'd enjoyed and like it filtered down, right? So you figured out, hey, this is gonna, I mean, I would imagine that contributed to retention quite a bit of your high performers.
It certainly did. And we also augmented it with wellness days, like a floating holiday that people can choose when to use it and they don't need a reason. And they've, I think, appreciated this sort of onus is on me, the flexibility of I can take a holiday whenever I want. So that's been pretty awesome too.
You know what, I used to have, like, when I was living in Hawaii, I had floating surf days that I gave people.
Yeah.
It didn't work out well. And the only reason was I had one kid who probably like, gosh, he barreled through his floating surf days like within like maybe 3 or 4 months. And his fourth month, we had to let him go because he called in sick one day. And essentially, we used to stream the video cams of the surfing into our office. We had a big monitor, and we saw him taking off and surfing a wave. And actually, all the employees called him out on it. So, yeah, that was interesting. As long as people don't take advantage of it, I mean, we're
Yeah, we
good, right?
have these 2 days per year. It sounds like you might have had more, that most people are scheduling in advance, but it's okay
Yeah,
if they don't. I mean, it's intended to be use it as you would like. No, no judgment, no repercussions.
yeah. Well, it only became a problem because you lied about it, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think if you would have called and said, "Hey, look at, I know I'm over on my surf days, but I need to go surf today." I think everybody would have been okay with it. But all right, so let's talk about your growth and learning and people development, right? Because I think that that's one of the things that I have heard from lots and lots of candidates is that, you know, there's no what's in it for me, right? Nobody like
Mm.
they'll invest in me from the perspective of, I don't know, like if I want to take a class, they'll pay for it, but like there's no kind of push toward it. So like what did you find and what are you guys doing for, to develop your people?
So much. I think so much of it really starts though with that mindset. And I think that's what you were just kind of acknowledging, right? If you don't have a mindset that it matters that we invest in our teams, then you're kind of like deal breaker from the get-go.
So
I
true.
think also for working wardrobes, like this is literally why we exist as an organization. Our true north compass aims toward people's development, their learning, their intellectual property gain, and this idea that you would use that then in the workplace. So I feel like I do have a little bit of a leading edge on that in terms of that is why we exist. But a part of it is we also see the success that we are seeking in our clients, in our staff. So as much as it sometimes breaks my heart to lose a person who has grown, and is off, as you said, graduated to another place, right? That for me is also balanced with wanting to see people achieve their career goals. And so while
Yeah.
that can sometimes be a loss for working wardrobes, it is the ultimate higher purpose that we are fulfilling that is a good thing. Part of the ways that we invest are those annual conversations to set up what are your professional goals for the year and how can I help you achieve them? And that's a manager employee conversation that is operationalized as an organization and it happens twice a year. Once to set the goals and then that mid-year check-in, how are we doing? And those are not part of what we're doing is achieving business goals, but within that is the expectation that each of us is growing as individuals, that we're becoming better versions of ourselves, and that we're creating opportunities to literally parlay that into the universe. I mentioned that we have a Toastmasters chapter, and people are all encouraged as they are hired to join that club and to learn those skills and kind of get that feedback. We also have monthly professional development, and it's offered in a variety of different modalities. So sometimes we do professional development all as a team, in person and online. Sometimes it's pushed out through our software system. So an example of that might be your 30-minute first aid class is coming out through the software versus the 30-minute executive presence class is hybrid, offered live and in person, but also available. So really and also taking the feedback, always asking the team, what else do you want to learn? What else do you want to lean into? Like most recently, they were sharing that they want to hear a little bit more about, navigating personal finances and things like that. So we'll bring those courses, to our employees. I
That's
think
it. And that's also something you offer in your business to people who you're teaching too, right? So
that's right.
it's directly correlated. Talk to me about this culture committee because you had well, I think you called it cheers for peers, right? Or
That's
something.
right. That's
All
right.
right. So this was kind of I mean, you're absolutely right. And when leadership's job becomes very easy is when the people drive the culture, right? So how does that work?
Well, I can say from my seat, sometimes it's hard to let go. um, but that's
Yeah,
just the controlling, type A thing that I bring to everything. Um,
totally.
so here was the question. The question was, leadership team was, crafting these experiences, and the question became, is this what you want? Why are we creating? We should be creating the space for. And so let's bring together people who are interested in creating experiences for the team to get together and have them craft, and we'll support and help. And so that's what it's really transitioned to, right? The culture committee is led by peers creating what those experiences are. And we have some, like, I don't know, rituals, if you will. Like, we always do a Friendsgiving, we always do a holiday party, we usually do something around 4th of July, these kinds of moments. But the what is it is what's really being crafted by the team. And it's been really fun to see the people who love party planning, the people who love decor, the people who have a passion are able to then like live that through their work experience. So I personally really loved our spring fling. We had like a little spring break party that was adorable. I'm thinking about Hawaii now. There were palm trees and Easter eggs, and like everything kind of came together at the same time. Never would that have existed had that team of peers come together to create what they wanted to experience.
That's super cool. So you've got a team of people that have essentially taken ownership and decided, hey, like we're gonna help drive culture.
Well,
Like,
and yes, and I guess I really talked about like these experiences, but part of it too has been there's been like a peer recognition that happens all the time, whether it's over, different channels, whether it's email or Teams, but also there's a rotating award that is like once you receive the award, you get to give the award. There's a lot of these like I want to say that they're informal, but I don't want to dismiss it. There is a formal thought process and a strategy at play, but they're happening not on like a schedule. So that's pretty awesome too.
that's perfect. Now, how does this manifest itself in your hiring practice?
In the hiring practice, I would go back to what we were talking about with the core values, and that our core values really drive our hiring decisions. And it's like either you are or you're not. And so we'll talk about our core. Oh, you have something to say?
No, I'm giving you double thumbs up. Like that's the way interviews should work, right? You're either a fit or you're not a fit. There should never be any
Yeah.
gray area. So like, ooh, I love you just got me
Yeah.
really that was my love language there.
Oh, good. Good. Well, like one of our core values is humble achiever, right? Which what that looks like at Working Wardrobes is that everyone knows that we're a piece of a whole and that none of us, not a single one of us, could have achieved anything without the other parts doing their part. And so when we have a win, it's like, it's never a look what I did. It's look at what we did. Like, I get to be the one bringing you the information, but like we did this together, right?
Yeah.
Um, Similarly, one of our core values is that we have grit, and a lot of people have grit as a core value. But when we talk about grit, what we're talking about is a sense of adventure, that we are excited to get through whatever comes up on the road to whatever it is that we're aiming for. So when we talk about grit, we're not just talking about, or I should say, we're not talking about the white knuckling like survival through things. We're talking about the yeehaw, let's go, and like we're gonna find our way there. Um,
Nice.
one of
It,
our
no, and I would imagine like, and you could tell me, but when you have this culture and the people are driving it, they also protect it.
Mhm.
So I would imagine that, and you can, that it's almost a higher bar and it's more difficult for people to get hired, which is good. This is a really good thing because you want to maintain and keep that those values and that culture alive.
That's right. That's right. Well, it's kind of, I think about life like a filter, like all of our experiences kind of hone us and filter us to, a certain place, a certain group of people, a certain area. And that's not by accident, I don't think. I think that that's also with purpose.
So very true. All right, shoot, we're getting pretty close on time, Bonnie. What would be 2 or 3 key takeaways you can give the audience so they can plug into their business that can help them succeed like you are?
I mean, top of the list is to never underestimate the value of investing in your team, that the people that are doing the work are not just worthy of the investment, but they will 10x the investment. So investing in them is an investment in results. Um, I would also say that, focusing on what works and what is the strength not only of a human but of an organization, and really harnessing that power, that unique contributor power, really discovering it and harnessing it would be my second. And my third is Nonprofits are an amazing way for every organization to live their values in community. And if your company is not yet partnering with a nonprofit, I strongly encourage you to find one that aligns with your purpose, your values, and maybe that is led by your culture committee or your team. But working with a nonprofit like Working Wardrobes, you can at any level of engagement, you can get involved in helping someone literally uplift their life. With Working Wardrobes, you can partner with us as a training partner, hiring our clients. We have a donation center where millions of items of clothing, all styles, all genders, all seasons, are accepted as donations when they're clean and on the hanger. And we need help processing all those donations. We also need help literally working with our clients. Sometimes people are able to help come, and if you have a passion for fashion, you can style our clients and their success suit for their interview. You can even maybe do something like a gift card drive or a toiletry drive. There are lots and lots of ways to get engaged. Don't stay outside of the world in your company. Bring the world in by being of service together.
Which is why we're going to be doing a t-shirt that we're going to be putting out in the next few weeks here too. So we'll drop that little bomb. But yeah, so I've been a big fan of you guys for a very, very long time, and it's near and dear to my heart. So I'm happy to help. And so Bonni, thanks so much for your time investment today, and I want to welcome you to the Higher Power Radio community. Now, what would be the best way in which members of the audience can find Working Wardrobes, you, and donate?
Please check us out online, workingwardrobes.org. Lots of people like to drop the S, so I'm being obnoxious. Workingwardrobes.org. And you're also, of course, check us out on LinkedIn is probably a great place to connect. We have, of course, Working Wardrobes or Bonni Pomush. Would be happy to see you there.
All right. Well, I want to thank you for tuning into this week's episode of Higher Power Radio. Huge thanks to our team, Brian Colburn, Andrea Ballin, and Rick Girard. If you're listening to the podcast, please subscribe, review, and share after all this shows for you. And we want to continue to bring valuable content to you week after week. You can join the Higher Power Radio community at Higher, H-I-R-E, Power, P-O-W-E-R, radio, R-A-D-I-O.com, or you can drop me an email at rick@intertrue.ai. I'm your host, Rick Girard, and you have been listening to the Higher Power Radio Show. Aloha.
Thank you for listening to Higher Power Radio. Catch our LinkedIn Live show every Tuesday at noon, or download the podcast on iHeartRadio, iTunes, YouTube, or your favorite podcast platform. We appreciate you joining us on Higher Power Radio with your guide to hiring success, Rick Girard.